Okay, so hello everyone. This is Reshmi from CPO Innovation, and we are back with an exciting webcast today, The Future of Procurement. This webcast is in partnership with MavenVista Technologies Private Limited. About MavenVista Private Technologies. It is a team of procurement process experts and technology professionals. They deliver intuitive software solutions to power your procurement process with the experience of industry veterans and the commitment of a service organization. This webcast will walk you through why procurement is vital, what impact the efficiency of procurement function has, typical challenges of traditional procurement, what is the digital approach, how do you prepare for the future, how to select technology, and your technology partner. Now, I'll take the pleasure to introduce our expert guest today, Mr. Suhrid Shah, CEO, MavenVista Technologies Private Limited. Suhrid is a serial entrepreneur, passionate leader, and a committed practitioner. He carries with himself experience of over 35 years across companies in the manufacturing, marketing, and technology verticals. This real life experience has assisted him to have a natural understanding of business needs and the user perspective to create easily adaptable solutions, leveraging technology to achieve business objectives. Now, without much delay, let me inform you all again. We encourage our audience to ask questions and we will try to answer most of them towards the later part of the webcast. So you can use the comment section to ask your questions. Now, allow me to give the charge to Suhrid with his actionable insights around the future of procurement. Suhrid, over to you now.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon to all of you. And it's nice to have you all on this webinar. I would take you through the presentation and take you through the journey, which we believe is going to be the future of the procurement. The whole presentation, as I think Rashmi reflected, I'm primarily going to talk about why procurement is vital and it's expected to be having a more important functionality in the future to come, how this traditional procurement is happening and what are the challenges, and what way the digitization can address those challenges, and how do we move from there to the future. Now, it's very important to also understand that what are the kind of skills which will be needed in the future, and what kind of a solution partner, how you will end up selecting the right kind of a technology partner. So this is going to be the journey which I'm going to take you through over the next 45 minutes to 1 hour. Let me first reflect that why is procurement vital? A typical manufacturing company spends close to 45% to 85% of their revenue on the procurement spend. Then on an average, bottom line is anywhere in the range of 7% to 20%, which means that every percentage savings in the procurement cost can enhance the bottom line positively by 5 to 10%. Now, typically, let's take an example of a chemical industry as per various surveys which are available. It spends close to 70% of these procurement spend, which is a part of the total part of the revenue, and their net profits, which is a bottom line, which is close to about 7%, which means every percentage saving in the procurement cost can improve their bottom line by 10%. Now, let's take an example in a slightly different perspective here, that in case if you want to improve in such a situation your bottom line by 10%, you would be required to say for 1,000 crore turnover company, almost increase your turnover with various efforts in getting a higher market share, production capacity, new product innovation to achieve the similar result. Vis-a-vis a procurement saving of just 1%, which is very much within your control, while the other factors are beyond your control, because the market conditions can determine also or play a very important role in determining your improvement in the market share. But here, with the procurement spend control, you can achieve the same result by enhancing the efficiency in the procurement. Now, why is it going to change this in the future, and why the need of this function is going to become more crucial in the future to come? The primary reason, the world is getting more and more dynamic. There is a constant change in demand. Change is only going to be the constant which we are going to see in the world to come. And there is a strong need for new product innovations. Now, if you really look at in both this scenario, without the efficient functioning of the procurement organization, it is almost impossible to maintain the competitive edge in the market. Let's look at that which are the elements which can enhance the efficiency, or where you need to enhance the efficiency in the procurement function. As we look at the innovative world, as we look at the innovation which is also happening at the supplier end, you would like to look at a very efficient process to identify the right sources of the material which you are buying, the sources which can also contribute and be innovative to align with your objective of enhancement of your market positioning and the product positioning. Very important element is the risk management. As you move into the more dynamic world, the risk proportion goes up because you're required to take faster decisions. And I think it's very, very vital to manage all different kind of risks, be it geopolitical risk, be it vendor related risk, various kind of risks which are relevant to the procurement function. Requirement management. I think we talked about the dynamic changes which are happening. We have talked about the various innovation which are happening. And it's very, very vital to very effectively manage your requirement in time, because any requirement not managed in time can adversely impact your customer servicing. Very crucial, because this is where you're going to save the dollars. Negotiations are the place where vital decisions are being taken by the organization. So the efficient negotiation, which is primarily determined by the set of information which are available, by the set of behavior pattern which you are able to study, and also by the prediction of the future, which you can accurately have it. Let's look at the contract management. When you look at once you've negotiated a contract, right from the legal drafting of the contract, most appropriate draft of the contract, to the complete fulfillment of the contract, it's going to be very, very vital. It's something which is where a lot of efficiency is going to be needed in order to fulfill the obligations which are towards the organization in terms of the procurement function. Most important part, finally, I would say it's a supplier relationship management. I mean, finally, your suppliers, how supportive they are going to be to meet your objectives of the procurement functions, how innovative they are going to be, because each of your supplier could be having the expertise in their own domain. And I think if you're able to motivate them very effectively, this is what can drive down the cost of the deliverables, the total cost of ownership of the material which you are expected to buy, and also the innovation which you want to bring about in your organization. When you talk about suppliers, it's also extremely vital to have accountability established. You need to motivate the high-performing suppliers. You need to guide the moderate and low-performing suppliers and you need to replace those suppliers in case if you're unable to get the desired output over a period of time. So that is where the supplier evaluation in order to meet the dynamic situations is very, very vital. This is a very, very sensitive business functions. I think a lot of decisions which are being taken, a lot of spend which is being done by the organization. So you want a complete transparency in the entire process. You would like to see the areas which are the problem areas and try to attack those areas very efficiently at a very high speed. Security is also an extremely important area, which is security of your data, security of your documents. All of this are very, very vital to protect your organization's secrecy, which is relevant to the procurement function. Last but not the least, and the most important area, which is competent human resources. In fact, this is one of the challenge which is even in today's world, which is what we are having, because I don't think there are any known academic institutes which runs through procurement management courses. It all comes out of the experience of people. And I think this is where, in order to ensure constant enhancement of the skills and understanding of the procurement function, and the most importantly, the business function, which is relevant to the procurement area, which is where you would be required to make sure that your people are adopting those new technologies, they are adopting and understanding the business needs very, very clearly, and they have the required skill sets for managing all of these critical areas. So let's look at how these functions are being managed in a traditional procurement. This whole procurement process traditionally is driven by transactional activities, right from require management to getting the RFP done, to get the negotiations done, to track the material, to evaluate the vendors, to onboard the vendors, to make sure that the vendor performance is appropriately evaluated. All of these activities are highly transaction driven. And just typically a sourcing process, when I'm looking at it, it's close to about 60 to 70% of the time is attributed to the transactional activities. There is also a human intervention on all data points, which raises many concerns in terms of compliance, in terms of possibility of a fraud. All of these are the part of the traditional procurement. When we are looking at a high amount of time which is spent on the transactional activities, many of the decisions are based on the perceptions rather than data and analytics or the gut feeling. And this is where the accuracy, that the quality of the decisions could be severely impacted. Now, I think it's impossible to find out what is a quality decision and what is not, because various circumstances which are prevalent at a particular time of the decision making are unknown in the traditional procurement process. There are large pool of resources involved. Even to run through the analytics, there's a huge amount of resources which collects the data, and most of the analytics which is happening through Excel. So you could be filling in millions of cells of Excel, and I think you probably are not sure about what is the accuracy of the data which is being put up and what kind of errors which could be incorporated there. So whatever analytics, also what you could be looking at, how accurate is the analytic finally represented to you. Huge amount of documents, soft and hard copies, which are required to be managed to meet the compliance and audit requirements. And there are multiple storage points of data. I think everybody has its own storage except the ERPs, which many of you could be using it. The rest of the data, which is beyond the ERP, which is all stored on their local storage drives. And huge amount of internal coordination which is desired. I believe that you are required to interact with your plant people, among your purchasing colleagues, with your suppliers. It's a constant amount of coordination which is needed in order to fulfill the requirement of various functions which I reflected in the earlier slide. So what are the challenges due to this which you find? This leads to maverick buying, because I don't think there is any possibility in absence of the speed and the pure data and the analytics which are available in order to take the most appropriate decision in a given situation. There's a lack of visibility of the spend. I mean, typically, let's take an example here of a negotiation process. Now, yes, negotiation is a complete process which is done offline beyond the scope of even if you're using ERP. And I think when you're looking at the various kind of decisions which are being taken, finally, what you look at is the order, which is a decision. So there is a limited visibility of the spend to in order to decide a right kind of strategy. Questionable purity of data. I mean, as I mentioned, there is a manual intervention at every point of data. There is a manual entry point by a human. Humans are entering data in Excel files. So there is a questionable purity of the data. When you look at the risk, each individual buyer carries with them the knowledge about the supplier's interactions. So when a key stakeholder, which leaves the procurement organization of a particular company, I think the organization is exposed to a big risk because the learning curve for a new resource to come in for that organization, for that industry, for that category of purchase is a huge learning curve, and the organization indirectly pays the cost towards it. Well, I think this leaves out most of the strategic thinking, except for the A category where the transaction loads are low, where you would be probably putting in and investing significant amount of time. But typically B and C categories of purchases, you normally spend close to about 30% of the total spend, procurement spend, and you have very limited time for designing any strategy there. You would like to have desired information on a real time, and that's what something is completely missing in the traditional procurement. Considering the fact that all audit which is happening on the decisions which are already taken. So it's more of a post-mortem that you would probably land up seeing that every time you're auditing a decision, not the process of how a decision has been arrived, except the limited documentary parameters which are available to support those decisions. This leads to a very stressful environment because a buyer, when he's required to coordinate with his supplier, develop suppliers, sign off contract, bring in material, and at the end of the year or maybe end of a 6 months period, the auditor walks in and he asks him the questions which are very delicate questions, and probably the memory span of the buyer is not facilitating with the convincing answer, and that's the stress which is what that even while going through the entire transactional interactions and subsequently when those auditors are required to be faced, I think the buyer is constantly under the stress to justify his decision in spite of the efforts made by him. Because of the lack of availability of the real-time data, lack of structured processes, lack of standardization of requirement, lack of standardization of documentations, there is a lack of clarity. I think we try to miss out in this hustle bustle of the transaction load. Many things which is required to be, which is required in clarity with the supplier, with your senior management, with your plant technical team. All this can lead to a lot of confusion in the future days. So how do you address these challenges? When we typically look at this, welcome to the digital procurement. This is a complete digitization of your procurement process. This can address your most of the challenges which you have enumerated in the previous slide. And I would again say, what is digital approach? Well, this is a networked environment with all your stakeholders to exchange information, communication, and transact on the real time, which means you're connected with your suppliers, you're connected with your logistics provider, you're connected with your technical team at the plant, you're connected with your senior stakeholder, everybody who is part of the entire management of the procurement process. You are digitally connected on a one-to-one level and one-to-many level with each of these stakeholders. This technology platform offers real-time visibility of all desired information. So whatever you could be doing it, you could be looking at negotiations and you would like to look at historical behavior pattern of a supplier during the negotiation, you have that available. I'm just giving an example. You have these BI tools which are dynamically creating relevant analytics. See, one of the challenges that you could be having BI tools, or some of you could be using BI tools, and that's an entirely separate environment. You would use it selectively, some skill sets which could be also missing in the organization to use these BI tools. And you would like to, while you are looking at a very highly charged environment, you would like to have these analytics dynamically surfacing on the pages, which is where you're actually going to design your negotiation strategy or procurement strategies. You would like to build all your SOPs within the system. So you don't worry about it. Whatever your standard operating procedures are there, nobody can circumvent, or even if it is circumvented, there's a trail available and the possibility of a justification available.
Surit, I would like to interrupt.
Yeah,
Yeah, the slides are not getting changed. So,
it's not getting changed.
no, like it's still on the first slide.
Are you getting it now?
Yes, yes, we are getting it.
Is it okay?
Yes, yes, you can continue.
So I did talk about the network environment. I talked about the technology platform, what it can do. I talked about the BI tools, the SOPs, central repository of knowledge that any person living, this is where all the knowledge is being stored about all what has happened historically. And the patterns also are being stored, how the negotiations have been happening historically for any categories or any items. Is a complete audit trail of all transactions and decisions. So maybe I think you don't need not have to spend any time for the audit. You can simply hand over the platform and everything which an auditor wants to know, he can find it out with a complete trail. And here the audit would happen based on the process followed for taking a decisions, parameters considered for taking a decisions, and not on the decisions. A digital approach, which is where you have 24 by 7 by 365 availability of the data anywhere in the world, be it on your mobile phone or any devices, your notepad, your laptop, anywhere, whichever place which you have carrying any of the devices, this information would be available. You would have the capabilities of taking decisions from across the world 24 by 7 by 365. Integration of market information points. So I think a lot of information which you would like to integrate when you are looking at certain commodities, when you're looking at certain categories, those information points from the market can be integrated on the digital platform. So when we are looking at this, you can bring about a complete visibility of everything which you wish to know on a real-time basis instantaneously, including the visibility on the performance of the supplier. How, when you're taking a decision, one of the risk mitigation criteria could be how capable is the supplier, what are his production capacities, what are his quality deliverables, what are his service criteria, what is his reliability in terms of the supplier. All of these information over a time would be captured, and the supplier performance would be available to you dynamically while you are actually taking up the decisions. So then the next question is, then what are the challenges? It seems that most of the challenges of the traditional procurement has been addressed through the digitization of the procurement process. But yes, when you digitize it, there are new sets of challenges which are going to come through. There is a huge amount of data. The interpretation of this massive pool of data is a very, very important thing, and that would be dependent on an individual judgment. So it requires a set of skills which are real high level of skills of those individuals for a certain processes for processing certain information and data. Well, the humans are still required to act based on data. So I think any human error which is not eliminated out of the actions which are required when you are even working on the digital platform. The demand predictions are still based on the data feeds. Behavioral pattern is missing. I would just like to put little emphasis on here. And I think you all might be interested in knowing that typically you are negotiating various contracts. Now, when you're negotiating these contracts, what is the insight which is what you have about the vendor's historical behavior? It's so important because typically vendors start building up their negotiation buffers based on the study of your behavior. But considering the fact that you could be dealing with multiple line items, multiple suppliers, it would be hard for you to determine accurately what are the kind of behavioral pattern of each of the vendor for each of the category which you are buying. And this is a very, very vital element to design effectively a negotiation strategy, because one of the very crucial part of the negotiation is the psychology. And that is where something which is you would like to understand the psychology of the supplier more effectively. Still, I think human collaboration would be necessary. Of course, it will be reduced to a great extent, but for responding to various queries which could be coming up. The knowledge would be available, sure, as you will be having a central repository, but interpretation of the data can be different. So how do you what ideally like to interpret this data and translate into a more apt decision? That's going to be still an individual skill which is going to be needed. So this is where you go to the next stage, and that's where the future of procurement is going to be. Let's look at machine learning. When you talk about machine learning, is machine are tuned through an artificial intelligence to build their own learning. You have artificial intelligence, which is going to be a very, very crucial point, and that's where is going to be determined, the future is going to be determined by that. Blockchain for protecting the and security of your data. Internet of Things. This is where I think you would be looking at interconnected devices on a specific IP. You would be looking at intelligent bots to address queries. But the crucial part of all of this is going to be the domination of artificial intelligence. When we talk, the world is expected to be completely dominated by artificial intelligence in the next 4 to 5 years. So let's understand what is artificial intelligence. It stimulates the human intelligence process by machines. So machines are made to think like how we think, how we would interpret a specific situation. That is how the machines are expected to think. So it consists of three elements. When we look at, there is an expertise, it's an expert system for a specific process. there is a speech recognition. When we talk, we understand and interpret that speech in a certain manner. And there is a vision that when you visually get connected, that is where again you build up some perception or build up some understanding. So it's a combination of expertise, speech, and vision, which is what is going to stimulate a behavioral experience, behavior of a human being. So let's look at it more in terms of a procurement strategy. I did talk about the negotiation behavior. Now let's say if you have negotiation behavior available through digitization of your processes, but you want a system to tell you that which vendor I should be targeting and what is the target price. I'm giving a very simplistic example here. So when you look at this, if you have historical behavioral pattern already captured by the system, it would reflect the situation in which the vendor is expected to give you higher discount. It will reflect, say you have a five different suppliers. It will stimulate this algorithm for each of this supplier and reflect considering your risk factor and the total cost of ownership and recommend a supplier and the target price which you should be doing. So that is how you can design your actually a strategy for negotiation, or you can put up your target prices. The speech recognition. Now, how do we look at when we look at speech recognition? We already have some examples here of the basic speech recognition, which is Siri in Apple, Alexa in Amazon, which is a Alexa by Amazon, Bixby by Samsung, and Cortana in Microsoft. All of these are the example of the speech recognition. We can talk to our Apple phone and it can start responding. We can ask him to search Google and it can start going through those search and give you the results. The second is the machine visibility, machine vision. So this is where you look at the inspection process. For example, visually you are inspecting something, your brain processes those vision to approve, reject certain components. And that is what something which is going to be the future, which is where the machine would be inspecting this, they would be visually looking at this, there would be scans which will be happening, and the interpretation of that scan would be actually going through, which you can go through the inspection process. So AI can combine all these three different form of human intelligence and many more, but I'm targeting only these three major human intelligence factor. It could be individually used, it could be combination of all of these three, and then you can empower your procurement process accordingly. Are you able to see the slides? Are you able to see the slide?
Sure. You're still at 8th slide, right?
I am on slide 12.
Okay. So you have to change it. Like when you're speaking, while you're speaking, you have to change the slides.
I'm doing that.
Okay, but it's not reflecting over here. So can you go to 12th slide, please?
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to see the 12th slide? Some example of use of AI in procurement?
No, it's still on 8.
I think there's a problem with your screen share.
So you have to click on the 12th slide.
No, that's what I did it. That is, I've been doing it.
Okay, now we can see the 12th slide.
Yeah, but that's where the problem is with the screen share.
Okay.
I've been changing the slide, but somewhere your screen share has not been able to recognize that. Are you able to read the heading, some example of use of AI in procurement?
Yes. I can see it.
Okay. So, spend classification. I think this is one of the challenge which each and every organization has, especially for the tail end spends where millions of items are there, and it's humanly impossible to classify these spends effectively. So, I think that is where AI can play a very important role through reading through this and with the algorithm try to classify spend most effectively. Chatbots, the artificial intelligence driven chatbots for sourcing. In fact, when you look at this, it will be a contextual suggestions which can bring up while actually you are going through a transaction process or while you are going through a negotiation process or while you are evaluating a specific performance against a specific order. Supplier risk identifications. I think this is one of the, again, a very important area where AI in the future can play a very dominant role. It can look at various geopolitical risk. It can surf through the internet, look at the news items, and determine the risks relevant to the commodities which are crucial to you, or the suppliers which are large suppliers which are in the news, and various other elements which are relevant, which is already available as your data points within your organizations. All of this can be intelligently analyzed by AI and can be reflected as a risk potential while you are actually taking the decisions. And the big data. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, you're piling up huge amount of data, and it's very vital to benchmark the data because you need the results at a time based on what decisions which you desire to take. So primarily, I would say all of this and many more things which AI is going to play a role, which is going to come up with either decisions or suggestive decisions in various situations. Are you able to see the next slide, Deloitte?
No, you have to click on that, please.
I have already clicked on that.
Okay, but we are not being able to see the 12.
Hold on. So every time when I click on the slide, I have to go for your screen share. So that's the problem.
Okay. Yes. So,
Hold on. Now you're able to see it?
yes, we can see the 13th slide now.
Right. So this is what Deloitte found that most people believe that automation and robotics will impact procurement in the next 5 years, which is what I reflected when I looked at AI as the component. But a very important fact here that you need to first walk before you run, and that's the case with any child. I think they can't start running without walking. And it's hard to it's impossible, it would be meaningless to have an AI component built if your data purity is questionable. So what you need to achieve is first to make sure that you digitize your processes effectively to ensure that you have the highest quality of the data, and then you build an AI algorithm in order to facilitate a decision, because any data point which is wrong, it is going to reflect the wrong decision. Are you able to see the 14th slide?
Uh, no, still not being able.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll do one thing. I'll go after every slide and go through the screen sharing option.
Yeah, sure. We can see you.
You can see me, but I
Yes.
think uh, all right. So are you able to see the slide? Hello?
Yeah, yes.
How do you prepare for the future?
Yes, we can see that slide.
Okay, fantastic. Very, very important factor. I think everything, all technology, everything which we talk about, your relationship management with your supplier is going to be very, very crucial to drive innovation and to meet changing needs. You need to understand it. I mean, technology is always one day old. So you can't think about adopting every new technology which you come across. You need to contextualize that technology with your challenges in the procurement function. And you need to do a timely selection of these technology, look at the adaptability within your ecosystem for this technology, and then plan out an adoption. So you need to constantly look at least the new innovations which are coming up. When you're looking at a dynamic environment which is constantly changing, there is a different kind of a mindset which is required in the buyers. And your mindset need to have that level of agility to adapt to different kind of dynamic situation, as well as because the technology is going to play an extremely important role. So there has to be uh, technology averseness which we need you need to come out of it and look at the with a you need to embrace technology with a for open arm, because that's what is going to give you an edge. Last but not the least, you require out of the box thinkers who can bring down your total cost of ownership and also mitigate the risk. These are the four very crucial elements which you need to prepare for. Now, I'll again go back and share a slide. I'm sorry for this interruption, but because of this some glitch in the sharing platform, we are going through this process after every slide. So let's look at how to select technology and your technology partner. It's very important for you to align with someone who understands your pain areas. You're not looking for a techie. You're looking for a guy who understands your business, who understands your procurement processes, who understands the challenges what you have. A realistic challenge is what you have. You want a partner who's aligned to your objective. Be very clear. Your success has to be aligned with the success which he perceives as his success. This is the most important part. Don't fall for perception. Don't fall for big numbers. Don't fall for any kind of lure. Go for reality check. I think it's so vital for you to know that whatever you're discussing with your technology partner, what has been achieved by that partner historically. You need to go and see where it is implemented, what has been achieved by those customers. You need to contextualize those customers' business scenario, procurement processes with your procurement processes, your business scenario. So you need to look at this is a very, very important step, because otherwise your technology initiative, what howsoever good the technology is, can go for a complete toss. Very important, because this is not going to be a contract marriage for a few months. This is going to be a marriage for a long, long time. And you need to see that what is the understanding of your solution partner in evolving the future landscape. Is it something which is looking logical to you? that you would have those needs coming up in the future and that can be addressed at an appropriate time. Make sure that since this is going to be on the cloud, this is going to be on the internet, make sure that your partner is taking up the best security measures. Last, but it's the most important factor of all of this, adaptability. If this solution is not expected to be easily adapted or seamlessly adapted or is almost impossible to adapt, then there are not going to be any benefits coming to you. No, not going to be anything, any of your objective can be achieved. So make sure that if possible, you can run through a proof of the concept, you can run through a trial run, and then try to look at whether the solution kind of fits your requirement and then take the next step. Are you able to see the next slide? I will have to share this slide again. Hold on.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'll do that. Please don't forget, and this is very, very vital. Technology is not a driver, it's an enabler. Business is the driver. You guys are the driver. What do you need? Is the technology able to support what you need? This is the most important factor while making any decisions on charting out your journey. It could be you could be on a traditional procurement model as of now. You want to move to the digitization model selectively. You need to look at that whether it fulfills your objective. When you have, and again, a digitization model which you are looking at it, you need to chart out this journey step by step. Nothing is going to change overnight. It is an ecosystem which needs to get evolved over a period of time. And I think that is where you need to very clearly define your journey for digitization and then moving towards the AI in the future. I would like to thank you all for bearing with me through this presentation and the glitches, which is what we have gone through. Uh, and I'd like to just put up my last slide that if you have if you have any questions, you can always write to us, call us. We would be happy to answer any questions. I'll be happy to take few of the questions here. And just for your information, we would be sharing with you the recording of this presentation. So because I think we ran through some glitches, and I think you might like to look at and contextualize what I have reflected with the slides which were there. So I would be happy to take on any questions which you have now.
Yeah, Surit. Yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you for your valuable insights. So we have a few questions from the audience side. So first question is, do you think implementing tech will help minimize risk?
Surely. In fact, if you're digitizing, it greatly reduces risk because today, if you really look at it, what are risks which you live with? You live with the risk of fraud. Live with the risk of lack of time and lack of strategy. You live with the risk of audit. You live with the risk of not having the material in time. All of this, when you have the visibility, or you live with the risk of losing human knowledge. Now, all of this, when you have digitized your processes, it can significantly go down, and probably you would have almost all of these risks coming down to at a very meager level.
Okay, so we have the second question. So how necessary it is for CFOs to work together with CPOs in the tech transformation process?
Very good question. I think this is something which is what I wish every CFO and CPO together can look at the transformation process, because it's very, very vital for bringing in the CFO's concern. Any solution, any procurement solution, considering the fact that it involves the huge amount of spend for any organization, the CFO is highly concerned about how this spend is being made and how those decisions are being taken. Are those quality decisions? What is the process which is being followed for taking up those decisions? And the CPO is required to contextualize the realistic situation and offer and look at a solution which can address the need of the CPO in terms of bringing him the visibility, bringing him the convenience, reducing his transaction time, mitigating various risks which he would be having, at the same time taking care of the challenges what the CFO would be having. So it is very vital to have a collaborative decision when you are looking at a specific technology or technology partner.
Okay, thank you, Surid. We have the last question for you. So do you see procurement will exist by 2025 or finance will take over?
I think procurement, in my view, would surely would exist, because I think there are different set of skills which are needed when we look at the procurement, which is going to be purely going to be data driven. But the finance, as I've said, that I don't think we can choose between the finance and the procurement. Both of them will have to exist, and both of them will have a more closer collaboration happening in order to manage the whole function. So there will be a perspective with the finance would be bringing, there will be a perspective with the procurement would be bringing, and together they would be looking at a solution for any kind of challenges they would be facing in the future.
Okay, actually, we have one more question from one of our audience. So he's saying that most transformation process started by his company did not reach completion, and he's from a pharma company. So how do you think we can complete all transformation on time and achieve full potential?
Okay, I think I did address this question, and this is a very important question, which is what probably playing upon the mind of every single procurement professional, every single CFO, because he's going to sanction the budget for this initiative. So I think this is not something which you can make it happen overnight. First thing, that when you start the journey, it's very, very important that what considerations which you had in place, did you look at the solution in perspective to the challenges what you were having, in perspective of the business which you have, in perspective of the processes what you are following? Did you try out that solution as a POC? Did you plan out that journey step by step, that every step of the success you would plan for the next step? Now, if you're looking at this entire transformation as an overnight exercise, first thing, you're doing it for the first time. And there are many gaps would be existing in the thinking process itself to conceptualize this entire transformation. As you move forward in the journey, as you get familiar with adoption of the technology, your needs also would go through transformation. And as you build your journey based on this, don't look at what one organization has done, I can replicate that, because the organizational situation, the industry situation could be very different. You understand your business extremely well. I don't think any outsider can come and tell you how to do your business. And I think that is where you need to translate your needs very, very clearly. If you started a digitization journey already and not succeeded, I think the first point which you need to look at, that what are the reasons why you have not succeeded, and you need to look at it more from a realistic perspective. There is an easy excuse everybody comes out with, that the adoption